Of you who have just come in, please remember the first cardinal rule, not just of Dhamma talks and meditation, but in other circumstances. Please turn your phones off. If you think you've turned it off, turn it off again. Paranoia in regards to turning off phones right now is appropriate. Not outside of here. Won't matter too much. Just pretend you're at a job interview. It's kind of like that, but actually this is more important. This is the job interview that will stop you from having to go to job interviews if you're successful. Okay, so the topic of today's talk is, as per the brochure, intention equals Kamma, question mark. Usually English is not a tonal language. We don't have much inflections. The only time we have any inflection in English is when there's actually a question at the end of something. Intention equals Kamma. Kamma goes up. All right. So intention equals Kamma. Let's explore this one. Now there's going to be an opportunity for questions and answers at the end of this. Hopefully enough time. It's a 12:30 finish time. Okay. So I'll try and allow usually more than 30 minutes for Q&A. My experience has been such that people usually have a lot of questions, and I can sit here talking all day about stuff that you won't find very interesting. So it's actually better that you get some questions that you have, I think, answered. You can listen to YouTube day in and day out. You can scream at the monk or the nun on there, this is my question. They'll just keep talking. So the difference between that and this, I can actually stop and answer a question. You may not like the answer, but that's a different thing entirely. All right. So when we have talking about Kamma, Kamma equals intention, it's probably good to understand, well, what does Kamma actually mean? No, it's not an Indian food. I'll have some laksa with Kamma, thank you very much. No, not like that. So what is Kamma? Literally means work, doing, or action. I like the term action. Work or doing is also fine. And then there's another phrase, Kamma vipaka, which is the outcome of the action. Or another way you can look at it as, very scientifically, cause and effect. Cause and effect. Causality. Cause and effect. Now, what are some common beliefs about Kamma that people may have? Like, how does Kamma work? Sometimes people think that Kamma is a collective thing, that you can have what we call collective Kamma. You may have heard this, or now that you know the meaning of Kamma means action or cause, collective cause. So like all of us here, we could all be lumped together with a similar cause and get caught up with the results of that similar cause. But there's a problem with this kind of idea that I'm suffering as a result of everybody else's actions. So, for example, the Jews in World War II, some people who don't know the Dhamma might say, you have collective Kamma with all these other Jewish people. You've done some really bad things in a past life. And so now you're suffering the results of all of those bad things that this whole group did. Maybe even stemming back to the time where it was a really long time ago with the pharaohs in Egypt not having a pleasant time as servants and slaves to the Egyptians. You've done such bad things even prior to that you had to be into that situation where you're controlled by these people. This is the concept behind collective Kamma. Does the Buddha speak about collective Kamma in the texts? No, he doesn't. He doesn't mention anything about collective Kamma. Why is that the case? It is true that there might be a situation in which you will think, well, maybe I'm a soldier and I'm out on the front lines and I'm fighting against that Taliban, the common enemy of a few Western people. So, I mentioned a few Western people. We won't mention names like presidents. So, or prime ministers. I am from Australia, we have a prime minister. I'm not mentioning anything about Singaporean elected members of government. There may be a secret police here waiting to take me away to the airport straight away. I'm not going to get too political. But anyway, so they may feel that, well, we're going to send some armies over to sort out the Taliban because they're cutting into our drug trade that we have in our own country. It's cutting down on profits with my crony friends. So they go and send some people over to die in another country that they can't usually spell the name of it. And as a result of that, you may think, well, I'm now involved in this process of fighting with other people against some unknown enemy, usually. And because of this, now I'm going to share the Kamma, the actions of my fellow soldiers. Even if I don't fire one shot at the enemy, if my friend Bob, who's next to me, shoots somebody, I'm actually responsible for that, and I inherit that bad Kamma. I should even explore that concept. Does the Buddha say that there is such thing as good and bad Kamma? No, he doesn't. He just talks about Kamma. He talks about actions being wholesome and unwholesome, but there's no such thing as bad or good Kamma. It's just Kamma. Kamma means action, right? It's true that in the Eightfold Path there is right effort, which would imply that there's wrong effort, that there is right action, and that would imply that there's also wrong action. But in terms of looking at that commonly used phrase, bad Kamma, oh, that's your bad Kamma, oh, that's your good Kamma, right? The Buddha doesn't use that kind of phrasing. He does mention Kamma. So because of this idea that I've participated tangentially in something, the murder of another person via this soldier next to me, that now I'm going to inherit the bad actions, the results of those bad actions, or unwholesome actions, right? This is a commonly thought process. If a plane comes down and crashes and 20 survive and 150 are dead, how does that work? Yeah, I kind of was around these people and they kind of had bad actions in the past and I kind of was supposed to die, but I kind of didn't. Does it make sense? Does that work? If Adolf Hitler goes and kills a trillion people in a war, well, is that my responsibility now as well? Because I fed German soldiers sausages? I saw some German soldier suffering, so I bandaged his leg, so now I'm responsible for 1.8 million atrocities over the next 3 months. Does it work out that way as well? Were you responsible for selling water to a water supplier who eventually ended up supplying water to the Nazis? And now you're responsible for the deaths of millions of people as well? You sold carpet to a vet who ends up, killing animals. Now you're responsible for that as well because you sold carpet to them. At what point are we going to look at this, I'm involved in all of this kind of stuff? Is it your intention to just A, sell water or carpet, or B, to kill other beings? Is intention an important factor here? Something that we may get to later on. So this concept of collective Kamma is rubbish, according to the text. It's not there. It just doesn't even make sense. If you look at it carefully, it doesn't make any sense. And when the Buddha teaches the Dhamma meaning has many meanings, but one is phenomena, another is how things actually are. Is this truly what I am experiencing, or is it something different from that? Is what I'm seeing actually what I think I'm seeing, or hearing, or tasting, or touching, or smelling, or conceiving? Is it this or something else? It's just like watching a magic show. You can watch this magic show and there's the magician on the stage. I'm going to do a role reversal, and she's got the saw, and there's a guy who's in the box. And so she takes the saw, she starts to cut the box in half. Oh my God. Oh, Buddha. The person's cut in half, and there's screaming and gnashing of teeth and wailing, and people in the audience are going, because we think the person's cut in half. It's very entertaining, isn't it, watching people get cut in half? See it in the workplace every day. Maybe cut down to size, different concept. So anyway, we believe this illusion because that's what the magicians do. That's what they're paid to do. They're paid to create this illusion of something being real, but it's not real. That's why you pay the big money to go in the front door, sit down and be entertained by that. The same deal with movies. Do any of you actually believe there is a thing called Godzilla which stomps on Southeast Asian nations with laser eyes and breath with nuclear radiation destroying everything? Hands up, those who believe that that's actually true. There's some people waiting outside with medicine for you. Okay. No, it's not. It's movies. It's make-believe. It's an illusion. But in the same way, what we think and what we take to be real is also usually an illusion. You think that there's a self, that there's a me within this body. This is just a magician's trick. The magician is greed, hatred, and delusion. The magician is the concept and conceiving I am. There is an I in this body, or the body produces an I, or there is an I separate from the body. In whichever way or case that you conceive that there is a me or that there is an I separate and distinct from this, then this is also an illusion. But we do a lot of things for this I. We make a lot of conceivings, a lot of assumptions are made on the basis of I am. I am this, I am that. Because of I am, we go to war with other nations and we go to war with each other. We fight amongst our friends and family. We try to possess things. If there is no I, then what is there to possess something? Truly, if there was no I, if you really understood that there is no I, if somebody comes and steals your house, you go, oh, fair enough. Okay, it's not mine. In Singapore, maybe that's more true for most of you than... because you don't have freehold, right? Well, very little freehold land. This is mine for 99 years. Like you're going to live for 99 years. Most of you will not. I wouldn't wish it upon anybody to live for a very long time anyway, just for the sake of living. I'm not saying go and top yourselves, right? I'm not saying go and kill yourselves. But by the same extension, well, we just don't want to live forever either. For what purpose and what point? Quality of life is very important. So when we're looking at Kamma, we're looking at action. We're looking at why is the things that are happening in our lives happening in our lives? And how do we reflect upon those particular things which are happening in our lives? Do we think that this is my life? How many times do you hear that in songs? John Bon Jovi, it's my life. Yeah, whatever. Go tell that to the people when the Vietnam War was on. It's my life. Yeah, that's great. Sign up here. You're of age. Great. Here's your gun. Next. That was your life, pal. Next. You think it's your life, right? With somebody with a gun poking you in the back. It's your life, yeah. So that all this comes about because of the conceiving I am. We get this dream, the illusion. Another one is this concept, and is really popular in the East, transfer of merits. Any Buddhists here? Transfer of merits. Does the Buddha talk about transfer of merits? He does. Oh, no. All the Westerners are going, right. Does he talk about it? Yes. And for what type of being does he talk about it for? Only one. You'll like this. Ghosts. Yeah. Westerners are like, who cares about ghosts? I was in the cemetery the other day. It was at night time. Spooky, huh? I didn't find it that spooky. So I'm sitting there walking around some graves, walking over the top of some graves, putting my foot on some, sitting on others. Well, nobody else is there. It's just stone. I know, I'll probably go to hell for that. I don't think so. It's just concrete. So, so I was in a graveyard. It was, about 11 o'clock at night or something like that. We've got one next to our monastery. It's very handy. Get sick of looking at flowers and Bambi and kangaroos. Just wander up the hill, right? Wander up the hill, and over the other side, just outside, it's not on our property, but just over the hill. That's where people who go are actually over the hill. That's where they end up, in the cemetery. You go over the hill, and then you're actually in the cemetery there, in the graveyard, and you think, well, that's going to be me at some stage. Maybe not. Maybe I get cremated and people just, throw ashes everywhere or something. It's just a body. It's not me. Why? Because there's no I. There's no I. It's just ash. The 4 elements which make up this body is just broken down and turned into maggot food or ash. These are your 2 options these days. You could try a sky burial, but in Australia that's illegal. A sky burial is basically where you're going to just put out on the lawn and the hawks and the crows come and feed on you. Romantic, yeah? Something you'd bring your boyfriend and girlfriend to see. Hey, want to go see a sky burial? Oh, I think that's his kidney. Just like going to the movies, right? A romantic comedy featuring ribcage. So these kinds of things, you start to see what's more real. The illusion of this body being something substantial, it's mine, I'm in control of it. I'm not in control of this body. How many of you have to go to the toilet when you get on the plane? Yeah. No, you're not the only one, mate. You're not the only one. All right? I watch them because I get to sit on planes quite a bit. Up and down the aisle, up and down, up and down, up and down. Next seat next to me, I've got to get up. Okay, you're getting up. I've got cast iron bladder. I'm good for about 4 or 5 hours plus. Right? I don't have to move. I just sit there. And I'm not in pain or anything. Some people will be in pain. Oh, my bladder's about to burst. If it was truly your body, if there's truly an I, you'd be able to control it. If it was really yours. But it's not. It's a set of processes. Cause and effect. Coming back to Kamma now. Cause and effect. If I drink too much water, or drink too much, if I drink alcohol, it makes it worse. If I drink too much water, bladder starts to get full. Once something starts to get full, what's its options? You've got 2 options. Option A, just let it keep getting full until it bursts. Oh, what was that? I think it was my bladder. Or option number 2, you relieve the bladder of the pressure. Like a balloon that gets too full, it'll either pop or you open it out and it makes that noise. Okay, thank you. Can I borrow you for sound effects? Give him a microphone. So you've got 2 options. And so usually people prefer not to pee themselves in their seats, so they go to the toilet. So they keep going up and down. But they don't have the control over their body that they think they have. You get sick, don't you? Has anybody here never gotten sick in their whole life? Not even a toothache? No. So maybe what the Buddha says about old age, sickness and death is true. We all suffer from that. So there's a saying in Australia, well probably, most of you have probably heard it, I imagine as well. There are 2 things which are unavoidable. Does anybody know these 2 things? Death and taxes, yes. Actually, that's not true. Death, I agree. It's unavoidable. Taxes, I disagree. I haven't paid taxes for 8 years. No income, no taxes. So I discard that as not being true Dhamma. So death is unavoidable, okay? With birth as condition, death will come. With birth as condition, taxation doesn't necessarily come, especially if you're wealthy. Your money's on the Canary Islands somewhere and it's not paying 1 cent of tax. If you're poor, you pay everything. Right. The poor can't afford tax relief. Okay. So anyway, you're in that situation where you can't avoid death because you actually don't have control of this body, and you would like to think you can control your mind all the time, but even there, that's a bit difficult, isn't it? If you can control your mind all the time, would you ever say anything unskillful to anyone at any time? No. Because when you think about what you say and it's not such a nice thing, you feel bad about yourself, unless you're a sociopath. Okay, assuming most of you are not in that category and it's just a minority of the population. All right. If we had full control over everything that we thought, we would never have an unwholesome thought arise in the mind. So we don't have full control over that. Thoughts will come based upon previous actions, previous causes, the effects of which are now arising in your mind in terms of thoughts. Some of those thoughts will then translate into another action. So this is where we talk about Kamma in terms of being cause and effect. With an effect being present, it's the basis for another cause that can arise. If there is no effect, there's no cause. Another cause cannot come to be. Thankfully, you've spent a long time, maybe not thankfully, you spent a long time in samsara being born and dying and being born again and then dying again, born again. So you've accumulated many actions. What do you think? Is it easier to do a bad thing or easier to do a good thing? You don't have to answer. It's not Q&A. All right, not right now. Bhante Jag gets to ask you questions. Right. Typically, it's easier for us to do bad things. That's why we go and develop laws. That's why countries usually have some kind of law and order. Sometimes it's law and disorder. Or law and dysfunction. But typically there are laws. Why? Because it's easier for us to do things which are not wholesome than it is to do the wholesome, the good stuff. So we try, but that means in the past we've done lots of things which are not very wholesome. Does the Buddha say that you're going to have experience of all of those kammas, all of those actions in the past? Is he saying that it is your destiny to suffer the consequences of all those things? Does he say that? No, he doesn't say that. That's called eternalism and fatalism. Fatalism is this idea that you are going to have to experience something no matter what you do. Well, I think that that's funny. I really do. Let's say I live underwater with scuba gear on, and in the past I had burnt a village down to the ground and killed a whole bunch of people. So now I'm really wary about this. Now I'm Aquaman. I live under the water, and somebody says to me, "You're going to burn in this very life because of all the things you've done in the past." What do you reckon the chances are I'm going to be burnt alive underwater with my scuba gear on? Doesn't make much sense, does it, really? Then they say, it might be some future life. Well, then that's good. That's speculation. But the Buddha doesn't actually teach that. There are things in life that happen not because of actions that you do. For example, I think I'm a pretty special person. Am I that special that I can command the sun to rise in the north and set in the south? Does the world turn in a certain way because I'm here? Does it rain tomorrow afternoon because Bhante Jag's in Singapore? It doesn't work that way. The rotation of this planet around the sun is not governed by what I choose to eat for breakfast next week. It's a bit conceited to think, the world does revolve around you, or the cosmos revolves around you. But sometimes we think this way. But it's not the case. There are natural processes which have got absolutely nothing to do with you. Some things might, in terms of global warming. Yes, we're collectively creating that issue. But other than that, no. Your impact is fairly limited to the circles of people that you hang around, the people that you interact with. If you're a prominent person in terms of you get to speak to a lot of people, then of course that network is larger. But it's not so large that you can control volcanoes, earthquakes, tsunamis, rotation of the planet, the visitation of aliens. You're getting the drift, okay? So the Buddha doesn't say, all things are due to Kamma. Any monastic that tells you that, or any Dhamma teacher that's telling you that, is telling you rubbish, which is not found in any of the teachings of the Buddha. I would invite you to look at those teachings of the Buddha, because that's what he said to do anyway. When he died, as he was dying, he said, compare what I say, or compare what they say to what I say in terms of the sutta and vinaya. Vinaya is monastic rules. You don't have to worry about that so much. That's my job to worry about that. Why worry? And the other one is the sutta, which is his teaching. So you listen to what this character is saying, then you compare it to what is said by the Buddha himself. And he says, if it is in line with that, then you can accept that to be the teaching of the Blessed One, the Buddha. If it is not in line with that, then you can disregard it as being not the teacher, not the teacher's teaching. That's what you should do. Listen to what I say, give it consideration, compare it and contrast it to what the Buddha actually says in the suttas. Not just go, oh, Bhante Jad says there's leprechauns in the light fittings and they'll make all your wishes come true. I'm going to transfer 100,000 merit points to the leprechaun right now. You laugh, but a lot of people believe this. Kamma is this sky thing, force out there. It's like Star Wars. Can you do the Star Wars theme? No, okay. In a galaxy far, far away, there's this thing called the Force. Use the Force, Luke. Transfer merit to it, Luke. No, it doesn't say that, okay? There's no external force out there dishing out, good boy, bad girl cards. It's not like that. It's not like that. So now I'll get to the point, because I've only got a few minutes left. Enough with the suspense. Kamma is intention. Yes. The Buddha says so in a very direct way several times throughout the suttas. Kamma is intention. And it is actually recognized by most modern societies, like Singapore. This is recognized in your laws. You may not have created them, but you've got them. Right? So, what's the difference between murder and manslaughter? Is it A, what type of car you drove over the person with? B, whether you were wearing pink at the time? Or C, the intention of the person who ended up killing the other person? I hope I've loaded it in such a way it's obvious. Pink? No. It's intention. The difference between murder and manslaughter is intention. Intention 1, I want to kill you because you really irritate me. This is murder. Intention 2, I accidentally run over a child crossing in front of the school because the child didn't look at where they were running into. Manslaughter. 1, you will get probably 15 to 20 or 30 years. If it's Australia, 3.5 months. It's sad. You get more for probably avoiding voting. All right, and the other one, which is manslaughter, you get a reduced sentence and much more leniency because it's accidental, it's incidental. Of course, there is still the result that one person has died, but intention is the king here. And for the ladies, it's the queen. You've got to be careful of the gender thing. So, intention is the most important part. What you intend to do. This is why this collective kamma is rubbish. Because whilst Bob next to me as a soldier wants to shoot the enemy dead because he likes to say, I want to get some, I want to get some. Maybe he's from America, maybe not. Maybe he's played too many video games, maybe not. Okay? Watched too many movies. Whilst I may not have the I want to get some mentality, I just want to stay alive. Bob's doing all the killing, I'm just kind of, quivering in a mess in the trench. I was in the army at one stage, but this never happened to me. So, the intention is the difference here. And I do not share his intentions. I don't think that this is a video game. I don't think it's trivial, nor do I think it's fun. I have a very different approach to the same war that we're both experiencing at that point of time, that combat situation. And therefore, with different actions, you get different results. Necessarily, 1 + 1 = 2. 1 + 1 does not equal 5, unless you're a treasurer in Australian politics. Right? The intention makes a big difference. The actions that you have committed have different results depending on what kind of action you undertake. Necessarily. If it wasn't that way, the world would be a very scary place. You go to buy a house, you end up with a trip to the Bahamas. Hang on, I didn't have that intention. But yet now this is the result. Okay? You sign a contract for a house and you're on a cruise ship. What is this all about? Okay? That's a very random kind of world. We don't live in that kind of world. Sun rises in the east, predictably sets in the west, some seasonal variations, but that's also predictable. The movement of the planets through the solar system is also predictable. Monday usually ends up with Sunday and then it goes back to Monday again. You work for 9 hours a day, give or take. When you go to school, you know it's going to take so long to finish. When you're unemployed, you know it's hard to live because you need money to survive. These are predictable things based upon very, very predictable actions. Samsara is like this. Samsara, being birth and death, birth and death, birth and death, is based upon the same principle. It's not a murder mystery. You don't have to die before you work out, is this true? Because you can see it for yourself. And that's what the Buddha says about the Dhamma. It is visible by the wise here and now. You don't have to wait till you die to see if you've got the right religion or the right philosophy. Bit late then, isn't it, really? I've picked the wrong one. Ah, damn. Now I'm going to hell forever. Not like that. So it's intention, which is the most important thing. And there is the one story about a monk who tried to kill the Buddha on several occasions, 3 times actually, according to the stories. Devadatta, the Buddha's cousin. Nice. Tried to kill the Buddha on 3 occasions. Failed on every one. On one occasion did manage to injure the Buddha, draw blood, but that was about as close as he got. The Buddha talks about him to the other monks and says, as for as long as I could see even a hair tip's worth of brightness in him, I did not say he's going to go to hell forever. For those of you who are kind of into this idea that, oh, you've done this and you must now accept these consequences and they will come full strength to you. Again, even in the Buddha's own words, as long as he could see that hair tip's brightness in that person, Devadatta in this case, he did not condemn him, saying he will go to hell forever. Somebody already has a full bladder and they're on their way. So it's very important to understand the Buddha does not teach fatalism or a type of determinism. It's not like that. There is that opportunity. Conditions change. One of the fundamental teachings of the Buddha is that things change. It's called impermanence. And because conditions change, what might have been expressed as something very grave is weakened. What was weak might actually be magnified a little bit, depending upon the conditions under which you're experiencing at the point of time for that action's result to come to fruition. Conditions has an impact on the gravity of it. I don't know if I've got time to relate an explanation for that or a simile, because I've been given the symbol, which means terrific. Keep talking. That's a T, right? Keep talking. All right, great. I studied media, so normally we do this. In some countries, it's not the right thing to do. I think I'll stop there, or else I'll say something which I'll regret probably later on. Okay. All right, so I'll open up for Q&A. Is that right? Yes? 10 minutes Q&A. Wow, okay. All right, you've got very limited time for Q&A. Rock and roll.
Yeah, I think thank you, Bhante Jack, for the very enriching talk on this topic on the Kamma, so that we have a better understanding. I think more than 10 minutes of Q&A, so maybe...
Max 20.
Oh, max 20.
I've got 10, I've got 10, I've got 20, I've got 20. Do I have a 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30?
Okay, sure. So we got about, yeah, don't worry about time. So I think we got a time check, don't worry. Yeah, so any comments and any questions?
Any questions? Yes.
Good morning, Bhante.
Good morning.
What about somebody who kills intentionally but regrets, is remorseful, repentant? Would that make a difference to the karma?
Yep.
A lot of difference?
Yep.
Short answer. Short and sweet answer.
You want a little bit more, huh? Well, Devadatta is actually, depending on if you want to believe the commentaries. So if you believe the commentaries, Devadatta had remorse and wanted to go back to the Buddha and ask for his forgiveness, but didn't make it all the way. He got kind of like swallowed up by the earth. Yeah, I don't like reading that kind of stuff because it's usually like in with Hansel and Gretel, you know. Story time for children, right? So that's why I don't get into the commentaries too much, because a lot of crazy things happen in the commentaries which contradicts sometimes what the Buddha is actually saying. So I don't like going into commentary land too much. Maybe if I want a break from reality, I do. A bit of entertainment. Ooh, look at that, it's funny. But it does change. People can go to jail for a murder that they've done, and maybe at the time they were deranged, they're kind of out of their mind. There's the influences at that time for that person was so intense that they don't know any other way to deal with something, and they do something very rash. And so then they go to jail, and as they're sitting there, those conditions have changed again, impermanence, the conditions that they're living in. Maybe it's more brutal in there, or maybe it's not. Maybe they actually find it more peaceful because they don't have all these people kind of, in their ear that they usually had around them in their circle. So they get a bit of a break, and as a result of that break, they can reflect in a different way upon the actions that they've done. There are going to be some who they couldn't care less. There are going to be some who would want to kill people in jail when they get there. Oh, I can't wait. Captive audience. Captive audience, get it? Captive in jail. All right. So the conditions actually do change, and that's why I was saying before that sometimes it's stronger, sometimes it's a bit weaker. There's going to be an outcome for as long as they're alive. The other thing is too, if I parinibbana, that means I become fully enlightened and I die, and I've murdered all these people. Well, how am I going to experience that Kamma after death? When you parinibbana, there's no more life. It's finished. There's no more becoming anything. So how are you going to suffer any consequences? There's nothing to suffer the consequences of those actions. Not just normal death. Normal death, yes, because the mind hasn't finished yet. The mind won't forget. It's like memory. Oh, what, you want a second question now? Jeez, people. Hang on. You just, settle down. Just okay, hopefully I've answered your question, but maybe later on there's an opportunity to ask more questions after lunch or something if you want. Okay.
Bhante, thank you for the talk.
Welcome.
Asking this question on behalf of my nephew who is sitting next to me now, because he's a bit shy and...
Can we get him to stand up so he's... Because he's a bit shy, so we thought that'd be fine.
So, because he's quite new to Buddhist fellowship and this is just his third week here.
Welcome.
Yeah. And his question is that specifically that because he plays a lot of computer games and games on a handphone, and quite a lot of those games are actually quite violent. So his question actually is, does killing people in computer games affect karma? Thank you.
It's actually a very good question. I've actually looked into psychology journals for this. There is no direct link between violent video games and murder or violent crime. I know, it sucks, doesn't it? Parents are going, oh, why did he say that? It's just one more fallacy I can't use. Okay, so there's no direct link from what I can read. There may be other psychologists or psychiatrists here who've got more recent studies or surveys or something. If you do, great, pipe up. But doesn't seem to be. However, we have to be careful. If you do something like this regularly, if you expose yourself to usually real acts of violence, and you take that in and absorb that, then you start to normalize it. You start to think it's okay to a degree. All right. So video games it's not real, right? And we know most normal people. I'm assuming you're normal. Most normal people won't react, but there will be those who are on the borderline. They're on the borderline of normality and not normal, and for them, it may push them over the edge, right? So if your son or your daughter kind of locks themselves away for 15 hours a day in a dark room, they don't eat, they don't bathe, that's just being a teenager, okay? But if they start acting in strange ways which you're not used to over a period of time, but that's something that you may want to monitor more and be careful about. And as a person, if you play the games and stuff like this, then you should see, have your friendships changed? The types of people that you associate with, has that changed? Have you become more antisocial? And it's us older generations, and I include myself in that. I wasn't born with a mouse in my mouth or an iPad, in one hand when I came out of mum. Computers came a bit later for me. like 15, 16 years of age. So I wasn't infected since, like 3 years of age, right? So that actually changes. We would actually go out and meet people, other kids, in real life. Like, you could touch them. Not like, oh, are you there? Yup. Smiley face. Actually get to see, real expressions on people's faces. When you hit them on the toe, then they actually, you actually get to see a real frowny face, not a text message just showing their displeasure. So that for us was our interaction with other human beings. But now you can't meet your friends because they live on Sentosa Island and you live in Malacca or something. And the only way that you can contact each other is through this electronic media. But in our days, when I was a young boy, we used to go out and play in the street. Right. Then we can buy a can of Coke and a pie and some noodles and 20 cents. But now you can't buy anything for 20 cents, right? You can't even get a stamp for 20 cents. So things have changed, and the way that now young people connect with each other is via this internet business. And it's really challenging. It's like, well, I would like my child to learn social skills, but the only way that they actually interact with society is via computers and hand phones. I've always been curious about that term, hand phones. It's a Singaporean, Malaysian thing, I think. Like, have you ever used your phone with your foot? I have a nose phone. I dial with my nose. In Australia, we call them mobiles because, well, they're mobile. You can take them around wherever you like. Hand phone. Anyway, so you got your head. So that's your connection now. And parents get really upset. They look at the kids, stop being on the computer. Well, what do you want me to stop talking to any of my friends? That's what you're asking me to do right now. Just be antisocial, because that's now antisocial. Antisocial for me means locking yourself into a room for 15 hours on end and not seeing daylight. It's like an episode of some vampire flick. Your son comes out of the bedroom like this. Okay. But for the younger ones, that is socializing. You don't get on your bikes and go in the park and meet and hang out in the park. Now, I think now maybe in Singapore it's like cafes and stuff, right? Because cafes are becoming popular. So you might hang out at cafes and you won't talk to each other, but you'll text each other at the table. Because you've lost the social skills. You can't converse with another human being in front of you. It's like, oh, well, this is intense. Hang on. It's kind of like a big public relations campaign. I was like, if I just talk to them, they'll know what I'm actually thinking and feeling. I can't have that. I'm going to manufacture this experience for them. He's like, they're going to think I'm Superman by writing this. Whoa. I'm funny and creative. I just cut and paste this from the internet. Until they actually meet you in person and you're like, hello. Okay, disappointed, right? But, maybe later when you're dating, you suffer those kinds of things. Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, any other questions?
Hopefully that helps.
Oh, this one there.
Thank you. You mentioned that the Buddha taught that there isn't collective karma. But is there such a thing as collective consciousness? So where I'm coming from is what that boy has just asked that question. I think because each of us are born into a certain generation or a certain nation, and each generation has a certain way of looking at things and understanding things. Just as if I were born in Asia, it's different from someone born in the West. And we all go through different things. And so because of that, then my sense of who, or rather the consciousness and what I do and the intentions I have. Say, for example, if I were born in a country where it's just peace and it's really nice, everything...
Australia.
Yeah.
Now you may think I'm biased here, but Melbourne was voted by The Economist as the best city in the world. Sorry, guys. I don't make the rules. I'm just telling you how it is.
So if I'm born in Australia, beautiful nature and all that.
Yes, and ignorant politicians, but yes, keep going.
Compared to somebody else who's born in, say, war-torn Middle East or Africa. Now my question is now, what happened to karma along the way? Does that mean that I did something so good that I'm born in Australia, peaceful, beautiful country, or I did something so dastardly, so bad, that I'm born in a war-torn country? So I'm just wondering, has that got to do with collective consciousness as well?
Okay, the term collective consciousness, or of what I've got actually written here, which I haven't mentioned it, universal subconscious. Okay, this is New Age talk. So, whilst you say collective conscience or consciousness, I need to clarify what you actually mean by that. I do agree with, I think, what the sentiment of what you're saying. We're all born in a certain context, east, west, north, south, in the snow, in the tropics, or whatever, and those things have a conditioning effect on our minds. 100% agree with you. If we talk about terms like universal subconscious, it's like this airy-fairy leprechaun in the sky mindset thing that I'm connecting like the Matrix or some rubbish, and I'm getting fed this kind of message, and I'm not aware of it, but, I've shot this guy, and I don't know why. I think it's the universal collective, leprechaun, unicorn experience. I'm not into any of that hocus-pocus 60s drugs stuff, right? I'm into what I can actually see and hear and think about and touch and experience for myself. Even if it's through the mind, at least having experience through the mind directly, which is something which can be repeated, not like a drug experience, which is usually variable. Okay, it's either more intense or less intense, and one day I'm dreaming about Santa Claus, the next one I'm floating upside down with mushrooms for feet. It's not, that's drugs, that's not actually connecting with anything. It's just it's hallucinations. So I'm careful to define what you're trying to mean or trying to say, because it is a loaded term. So is there a universal consciousness out there from the Buddhist perspective in terms of what we find in the text? There's no such thing. If there is, it means you're not responsible for your actions. Thank goodness. Now I can go on my drive-by shooting spree with, heroin in my system because I'm not responsible. It was the collective unconscious that made me do it. You've heard this before. The devil made me do it. Your Honour, I'd like to submit Exhibit A, the devil. Oh, he doesn't exist. Not very convenient in court. If I said the leprechaun made me do it, they'd just laugh at me. If I say the devil made me do it, oh, he's religious. Both are the same. You can't bring them to court in Exhibit A. Nobody's ever talked to them. Well, usually not people who are sane, right? So these things are actually a problem. So when we start to divest ourselves of our personal responsibility, that's when we can entertain gods and leprechauns and unicorns and Thor and the Marvel superheroes and stuff like this. Things that don't exist, but I want them to exist to justify my actions. I can blame them for my decisions. But in Buddhism, it's a tough gig. When you do something, it's because of you. My mummy made me do it. No, it's not going to cut it in court either. Mummy made me do it. Daddy made me do it. Maybe if you're 4, okay? But when you've grown up and you're of reasonable mind, the courts aren't going to accept that. I'm not going to accept that either. I'm not going to accept that. If I say something nasty, well, the buck stops here. If I say or do something beautiful or kind to other people, the buck also stops here. Just as it is with the negative, it is with the positive. Just as it is with bad action, it is with good action. It starts and finishes here. I can allow it to continue. I can try to curb it, or I can stop it. I can try at least. For a normal person, for people with mental disabilities, it's a different situation. They have a limited ability of control of their mental faculties. Usually because the brain chemistry doesn't allow the mind to act properly. The mind is trying to express itself through the brain. The brain is not the mind. Okay? The brain is not the mind. So the mind is working through the medium of the brain, but if it's damaged, it's got less chemicals of this, or half a hemisphere is missing, or whatever it is, that can impede the ability of the brain to allow the message of the mind to come through the right way. I don't want to go into neuroscience too much, but keep it simple. Does that make sense? Oh, you've got no microphone. No, I don't. Look, in terms of being born, who would want to be born in Ethiopia with a drug-addicted mother and the guy with a machete standing behind you? Who would choose that? Like, you got a catalogue of birth and go, no, I'll skip the Donald Trump birth. No, I won't go the supermodel. Can I take the infected youth one? I'd like that one. And no food. No, this looks good. Nobody would pick that, right? Not a sane person. Think of it more in terms of when you die, if you have very strong craving to be born, if that's the first thing that you see, you'll take it, lickety-split, and then you're born there. It's like, there's an opening at the hotel. I don't care what kind of hotel it is. I'm going there. Just pretend that there's, like the Olympics comes to Singapore and there's like 3 hotel rooms left, and you know that there's no hotel rooms left, right? And you see one of the 3 straight in. Because of that craving is so strong, that's where you end up. It's not like you're going, well, okay, can I call you back in half an hour? I'd like that room, but I want to check out my other options. That's what happens if you've got a more pure mind. You have more options, and you're discerning. You're not going to take the earthworm birth. It's like, no, I don't identify with that mind state that drags to that kind of birth. More of a heavenly thing, because my mind is a bit more elevated. More in that way, but that's probably another 2-hour Dhamma talk in itself, okay? Does that help to answer your... Okay, all right.
Maybe get Mike? Yeah.
What about those people that are born with very challenging physical condition? It's unavoidable for some reason. They're born with it and they're suffering for the rest of their lives. Yeah, a lot of people sometimes relates it to karma. What are your thoughts in that?
Some of those things will be due to experiences in past lives. Some of them maybe because mum drank too much petrol as she was giving birth or whatever. The Buddha, and this is where the Buddha is very clear in saying that not all things are due to Kamma. For example, the rotation of this planet isn't due to your Kamma or my Kamma, right? So it's an impersonal physical process, okay? A natural process. So if mum is smoking and drinking alcohol and taking drugs or something like this, in a sense, you gravitate towards that mother, in a sense. But like I was explaining, it's not like you've got all day to think about it, right? It's usually very quick. I'm so desperate to be born. Here's an opportunity. Boom. And then, mum starts to take drugs because she's having difficulty with her husband or whatever like this, and she's looking for a way out. And so because of all of these changes which have occurred post even your decision to be born there, and because of all those decisions that the mother is making at that time based upon pretty rubbish circumstances and stress, all the chemicals of the stress of the mother, of course, goes into the baby as well. Baby starts to feel insecure, maybe a bit of mutations occurring in the cells because of the stress hormones or whatever. There's all sorts of things that can take place beyond the karma previously experienced by that being before birth. So only very simplistic Dhamma practitioners would actually say, he's got a club foot. It's his bad karma. You don't have to think to say that. Anybody, all of you can say, I can get birds to repeat that. Get a cockatoo in Australia to say, bad karma, bad life, okay. You don't need a brain to do that, right? Kamma, the Buddha says, is exceptionally hard to understand and work out, and only a Buddha is capable of determining how certain karmas have expressed in this life. Buddha, not enlightened anything, just Buddhas only have that ability. Arahants, fully enlightened, don't necessarily possess this ability. They don't actually. The Buddha says it's one of the 10 factors of a Buddha, not of a fully enlightened being. So and he says it would send a man mad, and I would assume women as well. Women will go, well, no, we know. That's all right. It's only a stupid husband doesn't understand. All right, so he said it will send a man mad to try and work out his karma and the workings of karma. So you don't even try to do that. It's pointless. It's just a futile waste of your time. What you need to watch is what's happening in the present. Now, take responsibility for the now. The future will then be as good as it possibly can be, and the past will give you no cause for regret because you've done the best with your intention. You've done the best you can at this particular time. It may be a rubbish time, but you're doing your best, and you can't do anything more than that. Me, I might be like in the trench, hoping not to shoot anybody. It's the best I can do at that time. Let Bob do what he wants to do. It's not my business. Okay. Yeah, over here.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Another question?
I'll power eat. Mindfully.
Good morning, Bhante.
Good morning. What are you mourning?
For this topic, right, I remember my friend's story, basically. Like, she is working as a researcher. So what if your actions is because of your job demanding, because she need to do the experiments with the animals? So is it have the intentions to kill?
Can I qualify? You said she needs to do. She needs to do experiments on animals or wants to do experiments on animals?
Because her boss asked her to do experiments for this.
If I asked you to jump off the top of this building, would you do it?
No.
But don't you need to do that? The reason I'm a bit harsh on you is because it's the exact same process which allowed people to put people in gas chambers and gas them to death in Nazi Germany. There's a psychological experiment done on authority where people would electrocute another person. They keep increasing the voltage even though they know that this person could die from that voltage because a professor's sitting behind them saying, please continue with the experiment. They could have stopped and refused. There was no gun to their head. They were not in a life-threatening situation, but yet they keep administering stronger and stronger electric shocks. Does anybody know the name of that professor? Because doesn't come to my mind right now. All right, you can look it up on YouTube, shock experiments, something like this. You'll probably find it, all right? So there's video footage of that. In other words, because of an authority, you feel that you have to do something. I would put it to you, you don't have to kill any beings whatsoever if you don't want to. I'm a living example of that. I don't kill anything, not intentionally. If you're in a situation, does she have to work for them? Does somebody got a gun to her head saying, you will kill the mouse? Is that the case? So is it a want or a need? She wants money to buy things that she likes. You need to survive. You don't need to kill other things. As a monk, there are 4 requisites: food, shelter, clothing, and medicine. These are needs. I need clothing, or else I will either freeze or I'll burn in the sun. I need shelter because I will get sick if I don't have access to like a dry place to sleep or mold-free. If I get sick, I need medicine to recover. I need food to survive. Need. I want to drive an expensive car to work. Want, not need. I want money to survive. That's a want still. I don't use money. I'm, 9 years, 10 years in monasteries, 8 years not using money. I think I'm not an illusion, but maybe you think I'm an illusion as well. That's another topic. Want and need are 2 very different things. She can choose to work somewhere else, correct? She can work in any other job as well, correct? Does she have a gun to her head? Want and need. Be very clear about the difference between these 2 things and take responsibility. It's not easy, I know, but take responsibility. There's another question.
So I think with that, I think we have to stop here because of the interest of time. I think in short, it's a choice whether you want to do, So there's a choice now that we have to stop for Bhante Jack for his dana. And we will continue again. Let's put ourselves in angelic position to pay true respects to Bhante Jack for his sharing. First bow. Second bow. Third bow. Thank you, Bhante Jack, for his morning's Dhamma talk.
May one tea.
May one tea. You may proceed to have your lunch dana, and the rest will just remain